everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Anabaptist Perspectives, and I'm here with Elijah Yoder from Sharon Mennonite Bible Institute. So do you agree that with the idea that Mennonites, Anabaptists do evangelism, mission work, that kind of thing, different than non-Anabaptists, like mainstream evangelical or Protestant? And if so, in what ways?
In actuality, sometimes the methods that Anabaptist missionaries use are very similar to Protestants, and that's one of the problems that we've had in missions. We as Anabaptists have historically held to trying to live a holy lifestyle and not follow the things of our culture, and hence we dress differently, we are non-resistant, we don't go to war, our ladies wear the veiling. But when missionaries have gone to the field, and this happened mostly in my generation, the missions that were started in the 1930s, 1940s, and 1950s in conservative Mennonite circles went onto the mission field, and it was a new thing for them. So they went, how are we going to teach, and what do we do? They pretty much followed the Protestants in what they did. They did Bible schools, and they did a lot of work with children, and none of those things are wrong in themselves, but they were typically following the methods of the Protestants. But they expected the results to be different than the Protestants. Well, that first generation that grew up, yes, they had some success in missions, but the people didn't really understand the heart reason for what was going on, and they didn't understand the whole principle of discipleship and how it was connected with salvation. Missionaries are going out to save and bring salvation, but they didn't follow up on discipleship and one-on-one relationships. Mm-hmm. And almost all of those missions that were started in the 1920s and 30s and 40s are pretty much lost conservative principles. They lost the veiling, they lost non-resistance, they lost non-conformity to the world. And obviously, there's a lot of reasons that go into that, but one reason is simply that Mennonite missionaries didn't evaluate their methods.
Okay, so like in a way, like the methods ended up influencing their doctrine.
And, yes,
their practice.
Yeah, definitely, definitely,
that's powerful.
Definitely, and in some ways, I see that happening today as well. In our history, the Anabaptist emphasis was on adults, and one-on-one discipleship and relationship with adults. If you're a Calvinistic Protestant organization, the goal is more just to get people saved, and they don't focus on the discipleship follow-up part. What we need to do as Anabaptists is focus on relationships and not just go out to save people and bring them in and get numbers, but develop one-on-one relationships and follow up and disciple and teach. Proper teaching of biblical principles and what the Word of God says, and also just being there with the people, loving them, and developing one-on-one relationships. Whether it's in the mission field or at home, it's one of the things that's really lacking in our circles today, is that sort of one-on-one mentoring and relationships.
That's really interesting, though, because you have, especially more historically, that was a cornerstone of Anabaptism was community and discipling and a lot more personal interaction with people.
Your original question, you were asking somewhat of the methods that Mennonite missionaries use and how they differ. And what I've been saying is that in some ways the methods haven't always been different. And I'm suggesting one of the keys to Mennonite missionaries is we're going to be successful in really planting churches that are discipling others and following the Lord, not just in belief, but also in principle and lifestyle, is we're going to have to develop one-on-one relationships and discipling and teaching. I remember when I was here as a student, I did my thesis on teaching Anabaptist principles on the mission field. Mm-hmm. And I remember the first missionary that I sat down with to do an interview with, and it was Jacob Koblenz, who was a missionary in Mexico and Texas. And my goal was to try to figure out what is it that the methods that Mennonite missionaries need to use. And I came in fully prepared with all kinds of questions to ask him, what kind of methods did you use? Because I looked at his mission, and they seemed to be fairly successful in teaching biblical principles and being non-resistant and wearing the veiling and following Christ in life. And so I asked him a few questions, and he said, just love the people. I asked him a few more questions. He said, well, just love the people. And that's all he would say is love, love, love. And I got kind of frustrated with the guy, love, love. Well, but that is the answer. It's not in methods. It's not in so much what you do. And it's not that methods don't work. But if you're going to do kids clubs, the way you're going to bring those kids into the church is by one-on-one relationships and loving them. I was just at a church that's been doing kids clubs for 20, 30 years. And they finally had their first person that they've actually baptized and brought into the church. It's been a long, hard struggle. But that came about not because of the kids club so much, but because some young people in the church took that young fellow under their wings and walked with him on a daily basis. And that's where the rubber meets the road.
Well, that's a lot harder to do.
It's a lot harder than to run a vacation Bible school or a kids club or a revival meetings. Those things aren't all wrong, but it's going to be hard work, one-on-one relationships.
In what ways then, like Mennonites, Anabaptists, and you can pick them out, they're pretty clearly different from the rest of culture. How has some people argue that is detrimental to our witness. How has that, main culture going this way and we've decided a different path, how has that been an advantage for us in our mission work?
Well, it's been an advantage or a disadvantage sometimes. If you are not loving the people and you're trying to force them to live or act a certain way or put on a plain coat or a cape dress so that you can get some stars in your crown with the people back home, it's not going to work very well. You might get the people to do that so that they can get your money. They'll gladly do it to get your money, and that's been a problem sometimes. But if you love them, and they can feel the love of Christ coming through you, then those things are not difficulties, they're not barriers. In fact, when people understand what the veiling means, what it's for, when they understand why you're doing the things you are, and it has a relationship, it's going to be powerful.
And then when that happens, that is an advantage, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Huh. Yeah, because that's something that I've run into a lot, with different organizations. Some, they're often on one extreme or the other. They're just like, our culture is weighing us down, so let's get rid of this, these cultural things that are actually a lot deeper than just culture. They're, principles that we believe in. And then they're like, well, but we can reach more people if we put those things aside. But then you have the flip side of that. So you'll have some organizations that if people want to, come join their church, they have to dress up a very specific way and do very specific things. And I guess so what you would be saying is find the middle ground in a sense to where you keep these things that are really valuable, but at the same time focus on the people and loving them. And is that...
Well, let me just give you an example of one issue, the whole issue of divorce and remarriage. Okay. We have taken what I think is a clear biblical stand against divorce and remarriage. And that can be difficult because you say, well, we're shutting people out. Well, I have seen people throw that aside, but then what happens in the next generation, what happens if you have divorce and remarriage in your church? You wind up with broken homes and young people who are hurting because of that. And so is having a strong stance on divorce and remarriage a hindrance? Well, in one sense, you say it's going to shut people out. Well, open up the doors and you're going to bring hurt and pain into the church down the road. I was just doing some reading about revival here, and someone made the comment that sometimes we think revival is going to increase numbers in the church, and it does sometimes. But one pastor wrote that our church had a revival and half the church left.
Okay.
The reason is because they refused and they didn't want to follow biblical principles. They wanted to go their own way. And so I would much rather have a church of 50 that is on fire for the Lord than a church of 200 that is following the world and has nothing attractive to offer.
And that's where the rubber really does meet the road then. If we really do believe these things, when we go to mission, to do mission work and go to the mission field, will we just kind of put these things aside so that we can win more people, supposedly?
And I remember working with, this is a number of years back, we did a Bible study, several of us from the local church did a Bible study with a young man, and he had been divorced he was divorced and was single at the time. And he came to the Lord, became a Christian, started coming to our local Mennonite church. And he got offended. I don't know the whole story, but he got offended by some of the people. And he wound up leaving and going to Seventh-day Adventist Church. Wow. And he quit eating meat. He quit working on Saturday. And all these strict things he picked up on. And some of us had been thinking, well, the Mennonite church was a burden to him, and all these cultural things were what kept him away. And no, that wasn't the answer. It was because of relational issues. He wasn't feeling love, and so he went to a different group that had stricter standards, different ones perhaps, but it was because he felt love there. And so that's what I say. It's not. I don't believe that biblical principles are going to be a handicap to reaching out to people, but if we're not loving them, then those things can be. On the other hand, I do think we do have to be careful about differentiating between what is culture and what is Bible. But I think you made a good point that a lot of the things we believe, yes, they're cultural in some senses, but they're deeply rooted in the biblical background.
And maybe just the particular way we're practicing them might be culturally influenced, but it came from the text.
Yeah. Even things like I know sometimes in my classes and discussions we kind of laugh at our work ethic and we work hard. And that can be overdone. But we are to work with our hands. And in our culture today, when you throw aside the Mennonite work ethic, what do you wind up with? You wind up with people that they don't know how to work. They're scrounging and wanting everybody else to feed them, and you wind up with a welfare system. So, can it be overdone? Yeah, but on the other hand, I think you said it well, that some of our cultural things are rooted in biblical principles. And on the mission field, it's important that missionaries don't just take along their culture, but they take the love of God with them, and then you've got something attractive to the people out there. Yeah,
I like how you keep doing kind of what you were saying when you were researching your thesis. Just love them. You keep bringing it back around to that. I really like that. That's really
well. That first guy had me so frustrated, and but I wound up writing my whole thesis around the fruit of the Spirit. Okay. And basically, my thesis was that if you have the fruit of the Spirit in your life, that is the key, really, to teaching Anabaptist principles. I have found in my own life that if I have a relationship with God and I'm doing what I am doing because of my love for God, not just to impress the people around me or to fit in, that's what's key. Our actions have to come out of our heart.
And so if it's not really coming from out of a real, true, deep belief, then it's hypocrisy, really, isn't it? Yeah. And that's something Jesus wasn't too easy on, I guess. Yeah.
No, not really.
Oh man, that's a really good point. Yeah. Well, I think that's a great way to end this episode. Thank you, everyone, for watching and for taking the time to join us. We upload new videos every week, so stick around, maybe subscribe, share the video if you learned something. And if you want to see us cover a topic that hasn't been covered already, just comment it, and we'll make sure and see if we can do that. So anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next video.